We are coming to the end of Bava Metzia. This Thursday, Mitzvah Hashem, we already begin Bava Basa. Okay, we are up to the Gemara Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amar Aleph. The last few lines of the Gemara yesterday, the voice was a bit garbled, so we'll do the last part all over again. We're discussing a case over here where we have the last landlord and tenant, and the tenant lives upstairs and the landlord lives downstairs, and if the floor gave way and the balabayas doesn't want to repair the floor, we say that the person upstairs can actually move it downstairs. Move it downstairs till everything gets comfortable. And the last question I had was, does he move it with the landlord to get downstairs, or he actually evicts the landlord and he takes over the downstairs until the landlord makes the necessary repairs? And we're going to have a list of questions, and we're up to the last question where the voice got a bit garbled. And the question is as follows: what happens? The last question we had was okay, the person upstairs moves in downstairs. Can he use the front entrance, or does he have to go via his apartment? As he climbs up the ladder, goes up the stairs, and then he goes through that hole, and he goes back downstairs. Or now he had access directly downstairs. So now the question will be, there were three stories. It was the landlord owned the bottom story, first floor. Then let's say the landlord owned the second floor, and this tenant owned the third floor. Says the Gemara, we're about 10 lines at the top of the page. Shtei aliyas zu al gabi zu. The first line is gabi. So there are two levels upstairs, the second and third floor. Now, what's it in? Ifchas el yena is the very top floor. The tenant lived, very top floor gave way. The nachid over the there's no question. He goes down one level, and it's better for him anyway. Instead of walking up two flights, so he has to walk up one flight. So there's no issue here. What about ifchas tartayna? What happened if the landlord owned the very bottom floor, he owned the very top floor, and he didn't rent it out, and the middle floor was what rented out, and now the floor gave way. So, can he say to the guy, I want you to move upstairs to the third floor? I'm moving downstairs with me. The third floor is vacant. I want you to go to the third floor. Me, we say, I gave you an upstairs. So it's still called upstairs. Okay, an extra flight, tack is a bit harder, but I gave you an upstairs. And the rotation, okay, well, 10 seconds. I do perhaps Chad Aliyah Kabul alay Shtei Aliyahs like Kabul. He accepted to go up one flight of stairs. He never accepted to go up two flights of stairs. It's much more difficult than Shabbos carrying up things. Take who remain with the question. So Tay says the wording is very important. The wording he said the Aliyah al Gabe Bayis. And the question is, when he said al Gabe Bayis, did he mean specifically, very pedantic, the flight above the downstairs? So therefore he has no right to put him on the third floor, or a bias meant the whole building is called a bias, all three floors. So even though he said Aliyah Gabe bias, it didn't mean specifically, the second floor. Yeah. He meant one of the upstairs floors in this building. And that's the taiku. Now in the Mishnah we had a machlekes. What happens? Avyasi says that if it's the beams of the between the first floor and second, between the first floor, the ground floor, and the floor above that gave way, then the guy downstairs has to fix the beams. But it comes to the slab, plaster that you put above the beams, and the parts in between, we'll soon see that part of the plaster above the beams, that the guy upstairs is the one who only benefits from it, not the guy downstairs. So the tenant upstairs has to fix it. And the Tanakama seems to learn that the guy downstairs has to repair everything, not only the beams, but also the plaster, to make the floor level for the upstairs person. And we'll soon see what's the basis of their argument. So what do you mean beams? When he says beams, between the beams and the plaster, you also have to put like some kind of put the slats or put something there so you can put a plaster on top of that. Who puts that in between? It says, that the things you put above the beams, these little, these pieces, parts, is what also is included in what the downstairs person has to put, and the upstairs only puts in the plaster. And he says, also the planks aboard. Every place puts in different kinds of materials above the beams. So, yeah, exactly. So, because you need to put something there, the beams have a lot of gaps between the beams, so you need something else there between, so that the plaster has somewhere to rest. How do they trade with two people that have died living together? Whatever. One person was living upstairs, and one person was living in downstairs. Ifchis ma'aziva. What happened was the beam was still upstanding, was all right. The beams across were all right, but the plaster gave way, and as a result of that, any water from upstairs would go right through the cracks and go downstairs to the downstairs person, and annoy the downstairs person, and cause the person, discomfort. And the question is, whose responsibility is it? Remember, the guy upstairs is the mazik, and the guy downstairs is the nizik. Whose responsibility is it to make those repairs? And then Rashi said, I'm not talking about a tenant and a landlord here, because then the landlord would have to pay. But talking about here, a downstairs and an upstairs.
Two separate owners.
Yeah. So the question is, whose responsibility is it? It's like two different owners. And the problem was, when he washed his hands, upstairs, Ozli or masculine, the water from upstairs just went travel downstairs. So Mimasakan, who has to make those repairs? Rabchia Barabba says, Elya Masakin. And the Gemara will think right now because he's a mazik, and it's the mazik's duty to take care, to prevent any hazekas coming from him. And Abeloi Mishur Rabchia, this is also Rabchia, but Rabbi Yaisi, he says no. He said the Tachten Masakin. And the Gemara thinks right now this has to do with the machlekes, whose responsibility to avoid any hazekas. This is the mazik's responsibility of the nizik. The simon to remember which Abchia said what, the Yosef Hurud Mitzrayim. So therefore Abchia, but Rabbi Yosi, which is Rabbi Yosef, he's the one who says downstairs. Okay. You see how the Gemara memorized things. He wants to give you that little sermon in there, and so on. That's the Carnegie courses that teach you how to memorize things. They always have process of association. Exactly. Lema. Rabchia, Barabba, what's a machlekes? We took the Rabbi Yisrael Rabbanus given. Angin machlekes Yisrael Rabbanus. What machlekes? The machlekes, whose responsibility is the mazik of the nizik? And they were talking about the tree, and the roots of the tree are growing out, the shoots are going out, and there's other person has a boy, a sister who has water, and the branches are going right into the person's boy. The Gemara says, the one who said that Elyon fixes up, somebody holds, Alamazik lahachik is atzman. He holds the mazik who has to distance himself. Somebody holds, Alanizik lahachik is atzman mazik. It's a nizik's role. The Tizbra is the Gemara. So you want to say that, what do you call it? That it's a nizik that has to remove himself. So that's the question. What do you call it? So right now we think also, that we're thinking that the machlekes in our Mishnah between Rabbi Yossi and Chum, who has to fix the ma'aziva, because the ma'aziva prevents the water from coming down. We're thinking Rabbi Yossi says that the downstairs has to. Rabbi Yossi says that the ma'aziva has to be fixed by the upstairs. Hold the mazik has to make the repairs, and the Tanakama says that the downstairs, the landlord, that the nizik. Can't be, because in fact that very machlekes Rabbi Yossi is one who holds the nizik, not the mazik. And what is Rabbi Yossi Balin nizik? Please, we learn the time we learn. Marchikin is ilim in a boy. Esim v'chamesh amba. One person's property has a tree, he has to plant it 25 amas away from the boy. When it comes to a carob tree, or it comes to a sycamore tree, 50 amas distance, because the roots go much further. Even if the tree, the land is raised above, doesn't matter. The roots go down, they creep down, and they go into the person's boy. Im haboy kodem, but if the boy was there first, then koitzitz, the Tanakam holds that koitzitz v'noisedamim. Then you cut the tree down. He has to just compensate the person with the tree. But ima ilan kodem, but if the tree was there first, then you don't cut the tree down. Suffix, we're not sure what's what. Zeh kodem, suffix zeh kodem is lo yikut. Then you don't cut it down. Suffix, you don't cut it down. Rabbi Yossi says, Alpha pisha boy kedem, even though the boy is there first, and the boy is the nizik, the boy is the victim. Lo yikut, don't cut it down. Shezeh chayfa b'terich shaloi, v'zeh netayim shaloi. I planted a tree in my property, and then eventually the roots went into yours. Even though right now I'm the one who's causing you damage, it's not my responsibility. The mazik is not the one who has to prevent that damage from happening. It's the nizik's thing. If not, if it cuts the tree down, because it's still the tree. No. So what is it from here? Rabbi Yossi says we're talking about where you planting in your own rishus. Of course, I can't walk over and break your windows. Nobody says you can do that. But if I'm planting the tree in my own rishus, and eventually as it comes out of it, I'm not chayiv. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi holds it's the mazik. It holds it's the nizik that has to prevent it. And our Mishnah Rabbi Yossi says the guy upstairs has to fix up the mazik. And the Rabbanan are the Mazhar exactly the opposite of our Mishnah. So what's the Machlekes in the Mishnah all about? Illegal member pligi, but plukta rabbi Rabbanan the Hassam. You're right. These these Amoraim here maybe argue with Rabbi Yisrael over there, whether the Mazik or who has to put those pieces in between. So whether the upstairs and downstairs, that's the Machlekes. That I agree with. But our Mishnah about the Maziva is a whole different story. And the Machlekes is, what's the role of the Maziva? Is the role of the Maziva to keep the tikkers together? Or is the role, so that it benefits the roof itself? Or is the role of Maziva to make sure it's floor level so the guy upstairs can walk like a bench? Doesn't have to walk in, up and down, up and down. Then it's upstairs who benefits. Regarding strengthening the beams. Rabban hold the Maziva strengthens the beams, and therefore comes to the beams. It says the downstairs guy has to make the beams, so therefore he has to also put the maziva because that is part of the servicing the beams. Rabbi Yossi holds no maziva shri gumushu. Maziva, the only role of maziva has really basically make it level. But shri gumus al elyon shri, that's the role of the elyon. They were 80. It's not so when Rabashi ki avina ben Kahana. When we said, if it's not just you plant it, and eventually the roots take years and years and years to grow there. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi says that's not the maz's responsibility. But if it's something that Gidele, his arrow goes straight into the other guy, even though you're doing it in your own shus, you're standing in your shus and you have a bow and arrow and you shoot. So it's going to make the shus on potter? Of course not, because it went straight. My kayach. So here also, I'm pouring water and go straight down the ceiling. And the upstairs guy should be he's a mazik. The poskemai had enough. We're not talking about a case here where the water went straight down. We're talking about a case where the water slowly went, and nothing to do with mazik and nizik. According to Rabbi Yossi, there's no mazik here at all. Now, the reason why the guy has to fix up is because it's to his own benefit. Mishnah. Abayis v'Aliyah shel Shnayim. Let's say two brothers have divided Yerusha. And then what happened was the whole house collapsed. The guy says, "No, let's rebuild the house. The only way I can get my upstairs is if you rebuild your downstairs." But who you're right to live nice? The guy downstairs doesn't have the money. He's not interested in rebuilding. He has another house, a better house. So what does the guy upstairs do? So how do you balabayis boinus abayis? The guy upstairs builds the downstairs floor, the ground floor, but and he lives in there. Doesn't have to build an upstairs floor, build on the downstairs floor. Until the guy from downstairs pays him out, and so then the guy upstairs then builds on the lee above that. Now you said no. I've said no, it can't be because we had him in Robakama the whole sugya about zen nene. If I'm having a no, I normally rent a property and I'm squatting in your house, but you have no intention of renting it out. So you have nothing to lose with me being there. You're a loy chaser, and I'm a zenene. So we have a machlekes zenene. Loy chaser if I'm chayiv a potter. Am I paying you for my no? Am I paying you for your son? What am I paying you for? So that Yehuda will hold. But zenene is chayiv. So the guy upstairs lives downstairs. He can't live there for free. The guy upstairs is having a no because he needs a house to live. The guy downstairs is not interested in building a house. So it's like chassid, because he wasn't going to build a house anyway. But if you hold that chassid, you have to pay. So if he moves in downstairs, he has to pay rent. Has to pay rent. And then Rashi adds a line, which is a big mistake to show him. Rashi says, and if he doesn't pay the rent, then it's like ribis, because the time till the other guy gives you money, it's like a debt. Till the other guy pays you out, you're living in for free. And then when you use that money to build upstairs, you got paid out, but you got paid back living the use of a house for 3 months, 4 months until he decided to pay you up. So it's ribis, and it's ribis. Anyway, so Tesis, if you talk about ribis, then Tesis not have to tell the whole nice there because so even if he does pay the rent, he's still going to have a no, then have to walk up a flight of stairs. So if you're talking about ribis, it's ribis. And Tesis no ribis there because it's not a loan. It's not a loan here because this is a case of buying. Like you're buying the house back. I built the house. Now you're buying the house from me. I didn't lend you any money when I built this house. So there's nothing to do with ribis here at all. Because if there is ribis as Tesis, then even if you paid paid the rent, it's still ribis because you didn't have to walk up some flight of stairs. And if the mission continues, so what do you do according to Yehuda? He builds both. He builds both. and he builds it upstairs and everything else. The Yeshid the bite, but he lives in the downstairs. Actually, you pay me out. And what's the answer to that? Now it's the loin end of his elechasa. I don't need a house either. I have my upstairs. It's all ready for me to move in. The loin, and therefore the loin end of his elechasa. That's the only way to get around it. They says if it's alone, it doesn't help because it's still you're still having enough to walk upstairs. Number one, and number two, it says that the Gemara says in Facebook comment that if you're a malva. We have if you're a lender, that even the loin end of lechasa is forbidden because as far as ribas is concerned, there's a little bit of a non. That's enough to be high. Anyway, come on. Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan understood the reason. The reason our Mishnah places is you now have a no with somebody else's money. That's why you have to pay the rent. Rabbi Yehuda told us the same principle. Also, you don't have enough from your friend's money. One is our Mishnah right here. Why Taka can't you live in the downstairs house for free? Because you're having enough someone else's money. The other day he's going to pay you back for the house because he has to. And meanwhile, you're living in his house. You don't have enough someone else's money. Number two, now we learn, even though we learned elsewhere, there's another explanation on Machlek is Rabbi Yochanan understood that this is the principle. You don't have enough someone else's money. Now we learn in the end of Bava Metzia Daf, if somebody gives wool lutzboya to a dyer, and he told him he told him make me red color, but and instead he made him black. So there's a shinui. Or it says, well, shinui kind, it's like a galop, shinui kind, and you have to reimburse him the price of the wool, whatever it was when he gave it to you. Even Neisel made similar, give him the money for the wool. Now Yehuda says, nope. Rabbi says we're not going to be a kind at all. Now, we look at shinui is not kind or whatever. Rabbi Yochanan says the reason is, you know why? Because you're having hana from the fact that the other guy went and bought the raw materials for you. So it's not fair. So he said, you got to give it back to the guy. You can't keep that wool, even though you made a shinui, because you're having enough someone else's tircha. No, boss, you give it back to him, and the other guy has to reimburse you. Whatever is less. If the improvement is worth more than the expense, let's say give the expense. And if the expense is more than the thing, let's say shevach. The third case where we see this principle, now we learned. Misha Parah makes his chayvah. So Shimon borrowed $100, he paid him 50, but he's scared Reuven will keep the star. Reuven tomorrow, when everybody forgets, will go and ask for $100 again. So what he did was, he found the third party. He said, no, what? I'm going to pay you $50, that's all I can afford, but you have to give the star to the third party because I don't trust you. But he tells them, he tells the third party, if I don't pay you by the due date, 10 starting. Give the star back to the Malva. Then I give the Malva permission to go ahead and take the whole full and claim again the $100. He gives Malva nothing. He thought he'll be able to pay. He couldn't. Rabbi Yochanan says, well, you made up. Give it back. It's a matana. $50 you own, $50 you gave him a matana, and that's it. And you still give him the full 100. And Rabbi Yochanan says, lo yiten. Why should the other guy benefit from someone else's money? You can't. Why should he collect with this star another $50 when he already paid, part of that? Now, the Gemara says no. Who says that's the principle of what Rabbi Yehuda is saying in all these cases? Each one has a different explanation. Over here he says, over here, it's not Zenen V'Zelechasa. Your argument is, this is Zenen V'Zelechasa. Why should you have a no and use someone else's money? No, it's Zenen V'Zelechasa because when you live, it's a brand new house, especially a brand new house. You're living in it, you make it look lived in. And once it's lived in, the wall get dark and it's dirty and some cracks and everywhere. So it's... That's what he's saying here. When it's a brand new house, he moved in. 3 months later, it's no longer a brand new house. So therefore, it's an end of the chassid. That's why you have to pay rent. You're having a number. The owner is losing. His house is no longer a new house. No, we'll go back to the case of our Mishnah. Case number 2. Nothing to do with having a novel money, but it's over Mishana, because the reason over there is because she is not going, but because you made a change, you made an input in that thing. But now we learn Mishana. You have to pay. Whatever is less is expense of the property. That's what you get reimbursed. In the case of Misha Parah, you pay part of the chayv. Now we have a asmachta. The word is when he said it. If I don't pay by a certain day, I'll pay the full amount. You think he meant it? He's saying with such surety that surely I'll pay you. At this and this time, so don't worry about it. So it's an asmachta. And asmachta like Kanye, we had machayv. He said Yehuda asmachta kanya. Nothing to do with Rabbi Yochanan's principle. Tachten abolished as bigger. We can learn in the beginning of Bava Metzia, the first Mishnah. Actually, there's different kinds of rocks and bricks you use. Veal is 6 tvachim. It's uncut rocks, uncut stones. So they're big, strong. So if the guy upstairs decides, okay, the new building I'm going to build, instead of having that we used to have the 5 because it's the smooth stones, I'm going to have the bigger stones. It's not better. It means he can carry more weight. So Shemila, he has every right to. The guy says can't stop it. But because previously there was, because if he previously was Gavil, was six fucking wide. Now he wants to cut it down to the 5 fucking wide, and ain't showing you like a guy. If you not half bricks and you fill it with the cement in between, so it become 4 fucking wide again. It's a stronger wall. Show me if he wants to improve the wall, fine. But if he wants to bring it down to 3 fucking whole bricks, ain't showing like I said, I need stronger walls. The guy wants to use, to cover the roof. He wants to use cedar. Then Shemler, that's better than sycamore. But if originally it was cedar, then now with the new house he wants to do bishkami with cedar with this sycamore, ain't Shemler. You don't listen. If you want to reduce the windows, interesting how the Gemara learns that having less windows, not like today's way of thinking, but the more sunlight you have, the better it is. Those days, if you have less windows, it means less holes, the walls are much stronger. So you can carry a heavier weight upstairs. So if a guy had a wall before 10 windows, I said, you know what, I'm going to build a new house downstairs, we're going to have 5 windows. Not better. Now the wall has more stronger, it can have more weight above it. If he wants to reduce the wall itself and make more openings, then ain't Shemler. Listen, anything he wants to improve, good. He wants to reduce, we don't let him. Lahagbia, if he wants to make the wall higher, before it was a 6-foot wall, now he wants to make a 7-foot wall, ain't Shemler. You're encroaching in my territory. Lamayet Shemler, if he wants to make it less, very good, so then I can have a bigger house. Elyon Shabbat L'Shana. What about the other way around? If the Elyon wants to make the walls thicker and heavier, the guy downstairs can stop it. Elyon L'Shana, big Gaza Shaimla. If he wants to reduce the thickness of the wall to Gaza, is fine. Or the big real ain't Shaimla. He wants to make it thicker, you don't listen to him. Big Fist, he wants to make it half bricks, ain't Shaimla. Half bricks with cement, he wants to have a wider wall, the guy upstairs. The guy downstairs, hey, these are heavier walls. My downstairs can't take it. My house will sink. But if he wants to make smaller bricks, pleasure. Only full bricks, nothing in between, fine. Barazim, if he wants to increase the weight they're using, see the change. The Shikma wants a Sigma, which is lighter. The Rabbi wants to have less wall, the guy upstairs, more holes. Then yeah, better. Or the guy upstairs wants to reduce the number of windows, have more wall, which makes the wall heavier, then ain't Shaimin, the guy downstairs can stop it. Lahagbiya, if he wants to make his house bigger, before it was a 6-foot, now it has a 7-foot, obviously more wall, ain't Shaimin like this. In a way, what happens now? Ain't Loila Zev, Neither of them have money to rebuild, and we have to resplit the property. Right. So first, the Gemara bring the Bryce says somebody saying bring it, somebody saying take it out. Tanya ain't Loila Zev, ain't you don't own any of the land. The guy upstairs doesn't. The guy downstairs owns the land. He has the court, whatever. The guy says has nothing. That's opinion number one. However, another but I said I'm not saying the tachten. No, the guy still has the land, but it's not 50-50. The guy downstairs takes 2/3. The elyon shlish, and we'll soon see the logic behind that. And the guy upstairs gets 1/3 of the land. But others say the guy downstairs takes 3 parts. The elyon the guy upstairs takes only a quarter. Omar Rabba Nekaita Rav Nosson b'Yochel. We have this Gemara a number of times. Whenever Rav Nosson argues, it comes to Dini Mamlas, we say Halok Rav Nosson, because the Dayan he is a Dayan. The Nachis like Kedina. When you have a Dayan, you trust that they go to because their Din is not theory, it's practice. And when practice, you have to make sure you get the right outcomes. And so you have to try as well. Because Sovet, he said like this: why Taka did they get 1/3? Kama mafsid aliyah bebayis. I don't know how the Gemara gets to this conclusion. Gemara says that as a result of, if a house would be on its own, it can last for 100 years. Now that there's an upstairs to this house, it causes the dalam to sink and the walls to slowly disintegrate. The house it loses 1/3 of its life. So therefore, that 1/3 of its life that the downstairs lost, who has it? The upstairs. So therefore, the guy downstairs owns 2/3 of the land. The guy upstairs has 1/3. Hilchach kama mafsid aliyah bebayis tilsa 1/3. Therefore, he gets 1/3 of the land. Okay, we'll stop over here.